This episode of Seniors Today is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Welcome to Seniors Today, a talk show focused on what seniors and their families need to know to live their very best lives. I'm Denise Vaughn, the administrator at HomeWatch Caregivers Home Care, and with me is my co-host, Lisa Stover. Lisa is the founder of Presto Real Estate Services. Presto is a unique real estate company helping seniors with their entire transition process. As we use the word seniors or older adults, we started learning how different life is for seniors at different ages. As our life expectancy increases, you can actually be a senior for 40 or more years. Joining us are Jean Duberville, who is 88 years old, and her daughter, June Barnard. Jean is known as Gigi and is the head of her 5-generation family, ages 1 to 88. June is the president and CEO of the Driscoll Foundation. Welcome, Gigi and June. We're so glad that you could be with us.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
Well, when I met you, you were living in a multi-generational family house.
Yes, we
So
were.
how many generations were there?
There were 4 generations, and the 5th generation was about a mile down, right, Mom?
And 3 dogs and 2 cats.
That's right. We had 3 dogs.
Can't leave them out.
No.
That was a full house. I remember there were people coming and
Yeah,
going. And
yeah.
well, one of the things we really wanted to talk about was the fact that one size senior doesn't fit all. You know, we started thinking,
No,
okay,
right.
everybody's seniors. You know, once you retire, you're a senior. But now, in this case, you're a senior really taking care of a senior. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like?
It's been a challenge for me and a challenge for my mom because you don't think about taking care of your mom, and she's pretty independent.
Yeah.
And so it was an adjustment. And the living together, the 4 generations, that was tough, wasn't it, Mom?
Yes. They didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. It was good.
Sure.
It was nice to see everybody. And I could take the motor chair. She put in those chairs that go up the stairs, you know, and just go to my room. Or she'd say, go to your room, Mother.
Oh.
I would say that.
Yeah.
Well, when you say you didn't understand the younger kids in the house, or they didn't understand you, Gigi, what were you thinking? Like, what kinds of things?
Well, you know, it's such a different generation. I was brought up differently, and it just was so different. And I still thought that that's how they should be brought up. Well, you know, that's 5 different generations, like
Big
things
difference.
that moved along. And what I got hollered at or spanked at, or they don't.
Right.
And I said, oh.
No is
No,
not
that's-
necessarily no anymore.
No.
And we
Yes.
don't even use that word, right?
Right.
Today's moms don't like that word.
When you bring that up, talk about words, you know, there were more misunderstandings
Yes.
because of
Right.
the language, you know.
Right.
The silent generation, which is the generation that Mom was born
Right.
into, you know, they had some issues and they spoke. Well, now our millenniums and whatever, they're like, oh, you can't say that. You can't use that
Right.
word. And it was difficult.
I always said they needed a class that she could go to and that I could go to so I could understand.
A translation.
You know,
Right?
you're on your own. After your husband passed away, you are on your own. You do what you want to do. Then you move in with somebody. You know, like I thought we got along just fine, but there were times when we didn't get along just fine because she didn't understand what I was trying to do. And they don't understand my humor. It's kind of a dry, off the top type of humor, and my granddaughter would say, oh, grandmother, and I say, what? It's supposed to be funny. Did you hear what she said? You know, and I thought, my goodness, anybody else would think you're not on the same length, wire. You're
Communication
not,
level, you know, it's,
Yeah.
you think differently.
And before you know it, everybody's walking on eggshells.
That's what's
right?
happened. Right.
And my mother lived with us for 15 years, and it was really difficult. I had my littlest at that time, and, you know, she would say things that were not okay with me, and I didn't know, do I go to work?
Yes.
Do I stay home? Mom, maybe you need to go to work. I mean, we went through a few years of really, really tough times. So, and then there's guilt, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you walk on the eggshells, and then you feel bad because you said something that was hurtful.
yeah.
But we grew up with different worldviews.
That's right.
We don't see our world the same way.
Yeah, that's really true.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to do about it.
I was going to say, what do you think would have been helpful? Like, what could your granddaughter have done, or actually your great-grandkids, right?
You know,
What could they have done?
If we could have, she's a high school teacher and deals with high school kids, and it's different. It's not the same. And
They speak a whole different language.
they do. And I think, why don't you just sit down and talk with them? Or what, grandmother, you can't do that, or whatever, you know. And we just didn't understand each other. If there was, like, I'd be sitting in the kitchen area, and she'd be right in the other area, right by the refrigerator, and I'd say, will you get me a glass of water? It would save me from getting up, going to the refrigerator, getting it, and she'd look at me as if, say, what's the matter? Can't you get it yourself? She didn't say that, but you look at you like, you know, they just didn't understand that my arm doesn't work quite that way. And,
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you there for a second, because all of that was real. It was very real.
Yeah.
I think it's, again, the younger generation wants to see the older generation get up, move, do it.
Yeah.
Why are you just sitting there? Get
That's
up.
true.
So, you know, her motives and her reasoning and her logic made sense. Then you got the 88-year-old who's going, I don't want to get up. You know,
and you're supposed to help me.
right
I'm your
there.
grandma.
Yeah, you're sitting. So this was a situation where no one was right, and no one was wrong.
Right.
This is definitely a difference in how one perceives the other. And I think that that's probably the lesson that needs to be learned in all generations.
Yep.
To expect a 20-year-old to understand how an 88-year-old's logic is working.
Right.
You can't. You know, there's a verse that says, love covers a multitude of sins. You know, it's kind of, we just have to do that.
Yep.
We really have to look at the other generation, whether you're looking at the younger generation or vice versa, looking at them in a sense of, I don't get what you're doing or how you're thinking, but I love you anyway.
I love you.
And-
Oh, I love what you
Yeah.
said, and I think you're right. When you're an adult child, I think a couple things, which is you've already been raising your kids, so the thought of taking care of somebody also seems like a little bit more work, and you're not as patient as you used to be.
right.
But then I was just thinking, Gigi, from your perspective, is there anything you could have done differently to understand, you know,
Sure.
your teenage great-grandchildren, right?
Yes, sir, but we thought alike, but we wanted
That's great.
it. Our the way that we think. I didn't think how she thought, and she didn't think how I thought, but we were that strong. We both were such strong people. I needed to come down a little and realize I am not alone. They have their life too, and it doesn't go around me where I was used to things going around me because I was by myself and I could do that. And there was, but I'm really strong-minded and stubborn.
Stubborn, yeah, right. Stubborn.
Well, and it takes a strong woman
Right.
to make a decision to move in together anyway.
Well,
you know,
that was my fault. So you can't blame anybody but me on
But
that one.
that's a great thing. You know, you have to be strong to weather something like that. And
I raised the two kids practically by myself. I made the decisions and I was strong. And when I married the second time, he was so kind. I was still making the decisions. And I mean, he just let me do my thing, and which I needed to not do my thing.
You needed somebody to kind of rein you in a little bit.
Still writing my own checks, writing the checks and making the decisions, and he just let me do them. And he was such a wonderful man that way. Yeah,
Again, I think it goes back to the strong woman, that you were talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
We have 5 generations. 4 of them are women. The 5th one is a boy.
Yeah.
And
Break that
boys.
cycle.
And it's, but they're 4 very outspoken, strong, independent women.
Yeah.
And that's, I should have realized it when I tried to put us all together.
Well, I mean, so Gigi did move into a community, right? And you're still having different ages of seniors, right? So is there anyone in your community that's older than you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Now, sure.
Yeah?
There's a woman, 103.
Wow.
And when the doctor told June, she said, your mother, no blood pressure, their blood pressure is perfect, not diabetic. She's her heart, everything is great. She's going to live to be 100. And what did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, she just was automatic.
Wow. And then I'm guessing you probably have 70-year-olds living there, right?
Yeah, right.
So do you notice it's a little easier to get along because you're all
seniors? The age really doesn't even come into it. It's what one might have this disease or that. This one in her 70 has a bigger memory problem than the one in her 80s. It just all depends on what's the matter with them. One's got Parkinson's, and it's a little different. And she's a young woman, and the other one doesn't, and she's an old woman. So
age isn't the issue.
Age is a frame of mind.
Yeah,
I think I could probably talk to you guys all day long. We're so glad that you came. So thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your
It was really
stories.
fun.
I don't know that my daughter and mother will ever talk again to each other, but
Oh, they will.
I always told June that I was born to be on TV.
There you go.
And here I am.
And here you are.
Thank you
I love
so
it.
much.
Thanks.
Well, we'll be right back with more Seniors Today.
In Naperville, we know that community counts. In fact, it's in our name. As Naperville Community Television, we have the privilege of showcasing what makes this award-winning city a wonderful place to raise a family, to make a living, and to enjoy life's journey. That's why it's our mission to capture on camera those special moments that connect us. Those stories that impact our lives, stories you won't see anywhere else. So watch Naperville Community Television on air, online, and on social media.
Welcome to Avenida Naperville, a fresh, new approach to active living for adults 62 and better.
Avenida Naperville is a one-of-a-kind active lifestyle community, and there's nothing else like us in Naperville.
Our inspiring senior apartment community is tailor-made for active adults age 62 and better, seeking a maintenance-free, service-enriched lifestyle. Each of our 1- and 2-bedroom apartment homes feature all the luxurious details and contemporary conveniences you expect and deserve.
We have beautifully appointed apartments with stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, beautiful step-in showers with built-in benches. Everything is gorgeous. We have a ton of amenity spaces around the community as well.
Avenida Naperville provides residents age 62 and better with the perfect apartment home and community lifestyle. This is your opportunity to move forward and realize your future in your own way, on your own terms.
We tell everybody's story, big and small. They all matter to us, and they come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and that's what makes them so special. We don't always need a big story. Sometimes we just want a story that makes us laugh, or a story that we can relate to, or sometimes we want to cry with that story. But above all else, we want to share the stories about the people in our community.
Welcome back to Seniors Today. I'm Denise Vaughn, the administrator at HomeWatch Caregivers Home Care, and with me is my co-host, Alan Hoffman. Alan is the co-owner of Oasis Senior Advisors. He's an expert in helping seniors and their families find the best living community or in-home care for their needs. Surveys show that the top two concerns of seniors are usually health and finances. As the number of people living into their 90s and beyond increases, everyone wants to know how to make their money last longer. Joining us today is Mary Grunberg from Sorella. Mary consults with seniors and their families on their financial planning and insurance needs. Also joining us as our guest is Jean Perret, a retired resident of Naperville who is currently a very active volunteer. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Jean. Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
All right, so a newly retired senior, when did you retire?
3 years ago, almost.
3 years ago. All right, so the big question is how much is enough? So when you retire, how much is enough?
You have to analyze it. You really do. I was asked by my financial advisor to determine what I spent each month and what was start out with the minimum I could get away with, and then build on it from there to make something that was comfortable. But it took some thought about what have I been spending all these years? Where does my money go? So that's working with that's the way to start once you're ready to go ahead and draw money from your investment accounts.
Because did you budget, like for years, did you budget, or all of a sudden you said, okay, I'm retiring, I got to figure this out?
No, I didn't budget.
Yeah,
I really don't know how. I really don't know how to do a budget.
Right.
You know, but however, I lived fairly modestly, and I invested as much as I could in my 401k, and any money that I happened to acquire, whether from a small inheritance or a previous job, got invested into an IRA or some other investment account. So those were kind of tucked away and not used.
So, Jean, since you're a new retiree, are you retired comfortably? Are your plans working out, or was it a surprise?
No, they're working very comfortably, as a matter of fact. I haven't taken the QE2 across the Atlantic, you know. I'm kind of careful
it's on
with
the list,
that.
right? Yeah.
I'm not ready to jump in and go, oh, all right, let me take this chunk and go do something with it. But as far as my living, my normal way of life, the bills I pay, the things that I want to do, then yes, it's working out. It's working out well.
And Mary, from the business side, how do you approach a senior when they come in and want to talk about how do I make my money last in retirement?
Well, I think, one of my responses that's so common when I'm dealing with insurance and financial is it depends. As individuals, we're all so unique, and we have different goals and dreams and stuff. And so that's what we have to sit down and decide. And, Jean mentioned a budget and admitted, quite honestly, she didn't do one. Well, that's more common. Maybe it's not really surprising. It's very common that most people don't do a budget. They just spend. But realistically, if you think about it, if you aren't tracking what you're doing now, how do you know what you're going to need when you go to retire? So putting a budget together is really one of the most important steps. I don't know if I can say it's the first. Everybody's a little bit different, but we have a program, we go through things, and information is knowledge, and helping people understand how to look at that information, to evaluate it so that they can plan, is an important thing.
Is that one of the first things you do when you have a client? They come in, do they bring their bills? What do they bring? What do they talk about?
Well, one of the things we have a couple sheets that we can send them that gives them some ideas, and it gives us things. Like, I want to know what is the dollar amount you think that you want would make you live comfortably. Understanding your taxes, right? What are the things that affect us? Longevity, right? I think you mentioned it before. What is it? A couple turning 65, they have a 33% chance that one of them will make it to 95. So now think about that. You've got to cover 30 years of not working. Well, that means you've got to get your money working really hard for you while you're still working. And the way to do that is to start saving, as young as possible, and get that compound interest. That's what helps your money work hard for you, so that you don't have to work hard for the rest of your life.
I know in the other room we were talking about that, about your 401k, and I had an example where the very first employer I worked with, that was when 401ks were new, and they really encouraged us as employees to participate. Often a lot of companies don't do that. They're not maybe as proactive. I always felt like it was an education to talk to people who reported to me and say, you have to save for your future. Mary, what do you find that's difficult, I guess, when you run into the seniors or early retirees today?
Oh, everybody is so different, but you're right. There's a lot of options out there on how to save, but you also have to understand what your goal is, not just from a dollar amount. I know you mentioned how much do you need, but from the perspective of, instead of looking at a dollar amount, it's what about an income stream, right? How do we know, what does Social Security give us? It gives us an income stream. We know that the next month another check's going to come in, so we know we've got that amount to spend. Well, when you're working, you actually don't have a lot of time to spend your money. We find ways to still spend it, but think about when you're no longer working, right? So we kind of look at it and say, how do we create a play check?
A play check?
A play check.
I love that.
Because what are you going to do when you retire? Nobody wants to go back to work.
Yeah.
You want to travel. Maybe you're going to play golf, right? So we're looking for
retirement can be expensive, really. They always say, oh, you're going to spend, I forget if the statistics, 33% of what you spent. But I'm saying you're right. With all that free time, you'll be spending a lot.
Well, then what's the other concern? You mentioned it earlier. Health. Right? Maybe when you first retire, you're fortunate enough to be very healthy, and then it starts to decline. Or maybe you're like some of the people who, believe it or not, amazingly enough, the percentage of people retiring at 62 is still higher than waiting. And the biggest reason for that is health. So they don't have a choice, potentially, right? So they have to retire. So if we're healthy, we've got all those years of maybe travel or whatever are playing, but then when we don't have that, we've got to be prepared. And I think talking about the cost of health, which the inflation for health is much higher than regular inflation, that's such an important thing to take into consideration when you're planning for your retirement.
Jean, with your plan, and this may be too personal, so you can say I'm not going to answer it. Does your plan carry you out to what age? I mean, are they looking at you? Do you think you're living till 100? Do you have the assets to cover that?
I have a goal of living to 90. Now, whether I'll make that or not, I don't know. And there's, just anecdotally, my grandpa was 86 when he died. My daddy was 88. So I figured, okay, I can make a 2-year leap, and get there. But we'll see. I don't really I don't really know how to answer your question. It's not too personal.
I think you did, though. I think you said you're right now saying I'm going to live till 90. How do I make my money last until I'm 90? Right.
I'm very fortunate in that I have a pretty good cushion and a pretty good investment plan, and I have a very, very, very good supplemental medical plan. So something catastrophic could happen. I might have to go into, have something that where I had to be in assisted living. I had to be that, and I'm not planning on that. The money's there for it, but it would go really fast, a lot faster than me eventually, sailing.
So your plan can sustain Like a visit into a skilled nursing or assisted living?
Well, what I have is there. It's like, that's what there is, and it's not going to get any more. The plan I have, as Mary can attest, there are all kinds of retirement plans to set up, and the one I have is does have some earning potential, but it's pretty risk-free.
Okay.
So far, the money that I'm withdrawing to live on is being replenished by the investment. So it's staying, it's sustaining itself. But the question about, again, if I don't have to go into long-term care, I'll be fine.
Okay.
No, I think it's so great that first of all, you've planned ahead. You used the vehicles that you had available to you while you were working, and then you actually set kind of a goal of what you wanted to, how long you wanted to live and what kinds of things you wanted to do. I think one thing, I just comes to my mind when I hear your story is how many people have not had a chance to do all of this. So, any quick advice for someone who they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm retiring in the next 2 years and I really haven't put away this money.
So,
right?
Yeah. Ooh, I hope you've done something already, because 2 years, that could be kind of tough. The thing with planning, so first, the most important thing is to make a plan. You have to start somewhere. So just to make some type of step, just like you start with, maybe you only save $25 a month. You've started, right? You can always add to it. So you've started your plan. Now you've got to review your plan. I mean, my goodness, think back 10 years ago. Where were you at? What were you doing? And were you doing the same thing? How have you grown? One of the things I try and do in my business is continue my education. Because the one thing I've learned is there's a lot to learn.
Keeps changing.
Yes,
Right.
Right. The tax code changes. And so there's so many things with that changes. Look at even some of the things with health insurance. So make your plan.
You just had a calming effect on me right now, just saying, just get it on paper, right? Even if it's 2 years and you've not saved, or you didn't have an employer that, kind of pushed you to save, or you were living the good life and spending all your money. It just sounds like just get it on paper. Just start seeing what you have. I know sometimes in that case, people may need to sell the family home or, use an asset just to start, funding their retirement. But it sounds like the key is getting it on paper. Really.
Well, it's the start.
It's a start.
And then
it doesn't make money.
And then you've got to start following the plan, and then reviewing the plan, because as we know, life changes, right? That's the one thing that's consistent is change.
That's right.
So we have to be prepared. And making small adjustments here and there, no matter what it is pretty easy. But if you don't do anything, then at some point it's not so small. And so we want to make it small and just, kind of baby steps.
Well, hopefully we've made everyone feel a little bit more comfortable. So thank you so much, Mary. Thank you, Jean, for joining us.
You.
And thank you to all of you for joining us on Seniors Today.